Week 5 is now in the books, so let's dive into some players that I'm looking to trade for right now. Starting with Packers running back Josh Jacobs, who I don't need to try to convince you as to why you should be buying him from a production standpoint. He is a top 8 running back in PPR points per game this year, who had a tremendous game in Week 4 with over 30 fantasy points. He is the clear bell cow for the Packers with 20 plus touches in all 4 games, 70 plus total yards in 3 out of 4 games, and a touchdown in 3 out of 4 games. He is tremendous. We all know this. It's Josh Jacobs. Really, the two main reasons why you go try to buy Josh Jacobs right now is because, number one, he's already passed his bye week, which is great that you don't need to worry about that, and theoretically, you would be gaining an extra game for the rest of the year from trading away any running back on your team to move to Josh Jacobs, because that running back that you gave up would still have a bye week later on this season, and Josh Jacobs does not. So you would have that small advantage over other teams in your league because you gained an extra week back by trading for a guy already past his bye. But number two, according to our 4for4 rest of season schedule tool, Jacobs has the easiest rest of season schedule among all running backs. He only has one bad matchup left, which is against the Lions in week 13, which he already had 14 points against them in week 1, so that's not even really a scary matchup, even though it's highlighted red in our tool. But every other matchup is pretty much slightly above average to an absolutely fantastic matchup rest of season. He gets the Bengals this week, and then from week 14 on gets Chicago twice, Denver, and then a championship matchup against the Baltimore Ravens, who are currently the worst team in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. I am telling you, his rest of season schedule is just all green matchups. He could actually win people fantasy leagues and championships this year if you go buy him right now. So really, if you're trying to buy Josh Jacobs, I would be working around the foundation of whoever your RB1 or maybe your really good RB2, depending on who that running back actually is. Maybe you're taking advantage of Kyren Williams' big week and you sell him as Blake Corum continues to eat into some of his workload and he has one of the harder rest of season schedules at the position. Maybe it's moving off of Bucky Irving, who yes, is currently hurt, so you probably have to add a little bit more to him right now because of that injury. But even when he's back, second hardest rest of season schedule compared to Josh Jacobs having the absolute easiest. I'm talking Derrick Henry plus, Travis Etienne plus, Kenneth Walker plus, J.K. Dobbins plus, Cam Skadoo plus, Jordan Mason plus. The plus needs to be a very solid piece to go get Josh Jacobs, like a really good wide receiver 2-3 type or a tight end upgrade if you have multiple guys. But given Josh Jacobs' workload, his production, and his schedule, most prices are probably going to be worth paying just to go get him, and you need to do so before this week's matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I actually had Jacory Croskey-Merritt on my list for last week's video, but when I saw that they were playing the Chargers in LA, and the Chargers are one of the toughest defenses for running backs to play against, I believe they were actually top 5 coming into last week against the position. So my thought process was Jacory Croskey-Merritt would have another mediocre game, and he would be a great buy after week 5 as kind of like the running back version of Ladd McConkey. So that's why I left him off of last week's video in place to put him in for this week's video. Well, Jacory Croskey-Merritt, of course, crushed it this week. 150 total yards and 2 total touchdowns on 16 touches, and the ultra buy low potential for him kind of went out the window with that performance. But given that this is really his first good game of the season, I don't know if people would be fully bought in off of just one game, especially after what happened to Woody Marks this past weekend. But I am all in on Jacory Croskey-Merritt because the signs are there and were there prior to this week. He's actually currently first in yards per carry in the NFL. He's 4th in rushing touchdowns, 2nd in yards after contact per attempt, and 8th in rushing yards over expectation on the season. He saw a career high 14 carries this week compared to only 5 carries for Chris Rodriguez and 1 carry for Jeremy McNichols. He played a career high in snap percentage, which is still kind of crazy because he only played 47% of snaps, so he isn't even still playing a ton of snaps, but he finally saw the work to call himself the Commanders' RB1, and when he starts actually playing more snaps moving forward, he could be the type of player who is getting 18 plus touches regularly. He was so effective and efficient on limited volume, but now if Washington is actually starting to unleash him, that can only mean good things for the remainder of the year. And not to mention, Jacory Croskey-Merritt has the second easiest rest of season schedule for fantasy football. Josh Jacobs has the easiest. JCM is right behind him at number 2. He gets the Chicago Bears at home this week, who got dunked on by Ashton Genty and the Detroit Lions backfield, plus allowed 110 total yards to the Dallas Cowboys. Then he plays Dallas in week 7 after that, and a phenomenal playoff schedule from week 14 on. So if you want to get on the train, you need to do it right now. I would be moving off of guys like Alvin Kamara and Tony Pollard, Jordan Mason, DeAndre Swift. Maybe you can sell high on Rico Dowdle or Rashad White if Chuba and Bucky are out multiple weeks still, and they're coming off of pretty massive games this week. Or you just trade a receiver like a T. Higgins, a Khalil Shakir, a DJ Moore, guys like that. If the other person needs a wide receiver, then you get Jacory Croskey-Merritt. Moving on to the wide receiver position in a very similar fashion to Josh Jacobs, I want to be buying Falcons wide receiver Drake London. Again, I don't think I really need to explain why we want to be buying Drake London right now. He is a top 10 receiver in the league in terms of talent and the alpha wide receiver 1 for the Falcons. He has seen 8 or more targets in 3 out of 4 games and double-digit targets in 2 of those games. He hasn't been an elite fantasy producer outside of his week 4 game against Washington, but you cannot ignore the volume that he gets every week and the floor and the upside that also comes with that volume for fantasy football. As I said, similar to Josh Jacobs, there's 2 reasons why we're buying Drake London right now. Number 1, he is also past his bye week, so you'd be picking up an extra game moving forward by moving a player who still has a bye week for Drake London already past his bye. And then number 2, the Falcons have the 6th easiest wide receiver schedule moving forward. It's not a ton of incredible matchups against like bottom 3 or bottom 5 defenses all over the place, but there is a lot of green still against bottom 10 defenses like New England, Indy, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Arizona, and a Week 17 matchup against the currently 31st ranked LA Rams defense against wide receivers. So we have a great wide receiver, seeing a ton of volume every week, playing against a very soft schedule for the rest of the year, and he's already passed his bye week. I mean, sign me up. I would be looking to pivot off of guys like Zay Flowers, DK Metcalf, Keenan Allen, and Jordan Addison, all of whom are actually averaging more fantasy points per game than Drake London right now, but all kind of have warts in their situation, either with questionable quarterback play, questionable offensive upside, or questionable weekly target volume. I would also be looking to add something to guys like Ricky Pearsall, Chris Olave, Devonta Smith, Khalil Shakir, and even Mike Evans to move up to Drake London. Now, the final player that I'm looking to buy this week is Panthers wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan, who is having a fantastic start to his rookie season, but I think is largely going unnoticed for fantasy football because he plays for the Carolina Panthers. He has yet to score a touchdown this season, and he's being overshadowed by Emeka Egbuka as the rookie wide receiver to have to start the year. But the signals are all there for T-Mac to have a massive second half surge that we see from rookies every single year, while also being an extremely reliable wide receiver to start for you right now before his actual second half explosion. Did you know that McMillan is one of just 3 wide receivers who have seen 8 or more targets in all 5 games this year? It is him, Puka Nacua, and Garrett Wilson. That is it. Puka is, of course, the fantasy wide receiver 1, Garrett Wilson is the fantasy wide receiver 5, and McMillan is the wide receiver 24, averaging under 12 PPR points per game. Had he found the end zone even once so far, he'd be the wide receiver 20. Twice, he'd be the wide receiver 18. 3 times, he would be the wide receiver 13, just 3 fantasy points behind Justin Jefferson. And to make everything just that much better, Carolina has the 5th easiest wide receiver schedule moving forward, starting with the Dallas Cowboys this week. It is literally all there for Tetairoa McMillan to absolutely explode over the second half of the season. He has a massive target share every single week. Clear wide receiver 1 for his own team. He is playing more and more snaps, playing above 90% of snaps in each of the past 2 weeks, getting more integrated into this offense, understanding the NFL and its speed more and more as a rookie, generating a better rapport with Bryce Young every week, and he has the schedule for big games for the remainder of the year. We see second half rookie explosions every single year. A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rashee Rice, Brian Thomas Jr. last year. Obviously, Emeka Egbuka is killing it as a rookie right now, and that train has already left the station weeks ago to even try to get him on your team if you didn't draft him. But McMillan is sitting right there for anyone to try to get before he ascends to a potential fantasy wide receiver 1 like Egbuka is right now. And your buy window might just be open for a few more days until the Panthers play the Cowboys this Sunday. So I'd be flipping wide receivers like DK Metcalf, flip Devonta Smith and Khalil Shakir, Chris Olave, Jacoby Myers. Try to move off of the name values of T. Higgins, Jameson Williams, DJ Moore, or Josh Downs. I would rather have Tetairoa McMillan moving forward than A.J. Brown and probably even Brian Thomas Jr. Can you take advantage of someone who thinks that Trey Tucker or Rashid Shaheed or Romeo Doubs are just as good because they've gotten lucky lucky and they scored a few touchdowns early on, and their fantasy scoring is very similar. Could you sell George Pickens for McMillan plus before CeeDee Lamb comes back? Maybe it's Michael Pittman for McMillan plus, Zay Flowers for McMillan plus. There are just so many options to try to buy him right now that the only excuse not to be sending out trade offers is that you already have him on your roster, because Tetairoa McMillan is a top 15 wide receiver rest of season with a top 10 fantasy ceiling. But if you're looking for some other names to buy or just moves to make in general after week 5, I highly recommend checking out Kayla's video from earlier this week that you guys can find right up here.